Welcome. Boy, a group that's normally like herding cats was like herding cats with ADHD today to get you inside from, I don't know. I'm telling you. We begin our service today by acknowledging that this church stands on Tongva land. Tongva, the native peoples originally here, and I think it's interesting and it's just a good exercise to undo your colonialism, to take a peek at native-land.ca, which is Canada, native-land, and you can see where your hometowns are and the tribes that were there and the peoples that peopled that spot before Europeans got here. For those who were here yesterday, we had a nice service for Jim Michaels, who we send off into wherever. And I think we're not going to have joys and concerns today just because we're going to have a talk back which will probably incorporate a lot of our feelings about the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Today's theme is on church and state, and I'm going to preach probably a moderately controversial sermon, and then you can have at me when we're done in the talk back session, so everyone will have a chance to speak reasonably. Next week, well, today is Family Fun Day, which is outside on those tables back there. There's going to be an ice cream social, which is, I think we can all probably steal a scoop of ice cream. And the kids and anyone who wants to join them are going to make posters and tie-dyes and stuff for Pride. The Pride Parade in Long Beach is next week, and we have a spot to march in it. We got a spot to ride your bicycles around there, if that feels more appropriate. And there's going to be a caravan, it looks like, leaving from here at 7:30 just to beat the parking down there. The parade doesn't start till 10:30. Jewel's going to have a little sign-in sheet, so if you think you can march in the parade and want to do that, talk to Jewel. She's going to organize the details of that. We're also obviously going to have a service, but Pride in Long Beach is what we're going to participate in, as we have for many years in the past. Tomorrow, 4th of July, sometime after 6, I would encourage you to get here a little bit later than 6. We're going to have a little backyard party. We have, we're sort of providing basic drinks. We have beer and non-alcoholic sodas and stuff, but bring your own. We don't really have that much food, but bring your own, and you can watch fireworks from a distance. It's not the greatest perch for fireworks, but it's a chance to have a party if you want to come, 6 to 9 to the fireworks end. If you're looking for something to do on the 4th of July, come do that. In response to the tragedy, I guess is the right phrase, depending on your perspective, of Roe v. Wade, there's a table out there, and we're going to be engaged in protests and letter writing campaigns, and we're going to activate our congregation. This is one of the rare churches that formally has taken it. We don't take a stand on almost anything theological, but we take political stands, and we are taking a stand for women's rights, and we'll be involved with that forever. And there's lemons on that table too. So we're sending lemons to the Supreme Court, and Kelly and I dug up about 1,000 letters at GA for You the Vote, which we have been very successful at. We may have even had an impact in the Georgia elections last cycle. So we have had letter writing gatherings on the patio. It's a nice afternoon. We're going to do that in the future, but if you want to take some home, go see the Purple Wonder back there. And she can get you some letters to write. These are actually letters. They're not postcards, so there's a chance to say what you want in those postcards. So there we are. Let's see. You're throwing me a big going away party on the 22nd. I think everyone's invited. That's 6 to 8 on Friday night, a few Friday nights away, 22nd. My last day, sadly, is the 24th. All right, no, okay, all right. Thought I heard a cheer. Hold on, wait a minute. This week is Seekers on Wednesday, and that starts at 10, and there's a men's group that starts at 9:30 on Thursday. It'll be the last one with me. Chloe, who's going to be our minister, she's going to sit on a couple of the men's groups, head forward, and we'll see how that goes. There is no food prep this week because of the 4th of July, so for those of us who bag lunches on Mondays, you're off the hook for tomorrow. And there's a senior covenant group on Tuesday at 2 o'clock. I think that about covers it, and now that the service is over, okay, I'm going to light our chalice words with Tracy Bleakley's Twin Flames. She says, "This chalice burns for those who seek and defend the right to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning," one of our principles, "and for the defenders of freedom working against those who would impose their own religious beliefs on others through intimidation and legislation." So, wise words from Tracy. Not our Tracy, who's never issued wise words in her whole days, but that's a different story. Did I say that out loud? I did. About 3 weeks ago in Seekers, we had a conversation about the separation of church and state, 3 months ago, I should say. And the conversation didn't start there. We kind of fell into it. I brought in an exercise I designed for the kids, which was talking about what's real in a very sound way, and then what's real in what we conjure up to share. It's a very interesting debate as to what's real and what's not real. Like, is LA as a city real, right? Or is it just a contrivance that we agree to suggest that's LA, right? I mean, are human rights real, right? In that discussion, like we do on the Wednesday discussion group, I found myself sliding into a kind of a contrarian position. I think I do the same today in our 4th of July weekend service. Today, in the great American tradition of town halls and the great sense of independence that they come with in the democratic way, we're going to have a talk back. This was a major tradition of this church when Al was here, and really kind of UU churches in general during the sort of our strongest humanist period in the middle of the century. So I pulled the centering hymn. There's really not a prayer. There's no musical meditation. We're going to have a little bit more of a forum. I thought that'd be appropriate for today. But we start that off with, it's going to be "Come, Come, Whoever You Are" up on the board, and you can mumble along under your masks. Take it away, Abraham.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. One more time. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Who wrote those words? Or most of them? Rumi did, right? Rumi, the Persian poet, who's just super cool. All right, I want to invite our children down for our children's moment, and anyone who wishes to come join us. Hi, Olivia. Welcome. Hi. Yeah. Let's get us started. Kevin, tell us what this is all about.
Capitalism!
That's right. Capitalism. If you're new to the joke, this is a running children's moment joke. We were talking about what the heart of the church is, and one of the answers was community, but Kevin over here suggested that it was capitalism, and we all had a good laugh.
What would you make your own religion?
Oh, is that what it was? Okay. Ooh, wow. Double.
I meant to say like capitalism. Catholicism.
Okay. Let's get started. 30-second update on the Pride March that I missed.
I
What are we
don't
doing?
think you missed anything.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
got
miss
it, you
anything.
nailed it. If anybody wants to stop by outside, we'll just be out there painting signs. Or if you want to sign up, you can sign up there. You can also email me at moed@pacific-unitarian.org. There you go.
Good covering up, Olivia. It's good. This is Ruthie. She's a transgendered girl. That means that when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she actually is a girl. Ruthie is girl is her gender identity. This is Ruthie's brother, Xavier. Xavier is a cisgendered boy. You know what cisgendered means? You guys all know. No? Cis means like I look like a boy, I think of and I identify as a boy or a man. It's the same as the way people think of you and the way you identify. That means that when Xavier was born, everyone thought he was a boy, and as he grew up, it turned out he was right. He's a boy. Xavier, boy, is his gender identity. There's so many different ways to be. That's really the heart of the whole thing, if you want to know the truth. There's so many ways to be a boy and a girl. But not everyone feels like they look like, as we know. Non-binary is one of the helpful words that can describe a kid or anyone who doesn't feel exactly like they are one or the other. Right? You guys grew up with some of this, but it's sort of new to most of us, right? Be patient with us. It takes a while. And this is Ruthie's friend, Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. When Alex was born, everyone thought Alex was a girl, but Alex is both a boy and a girl. This is Alex's gender identity. This is Alex's friend, JJ. JJ is neither a boy nor a girl. Ever since I was very little, they never felt exactly like a boy or a girl. They just felt like themselves, so JJ has a more ambiguous gender identity. Alex and JJ are both what we'd call non-binary. Just like there are many different ways to be a boy or a girl, and there are many different ways to be a non-binary person, too many to fit in a book, right? Here we are. Some kids don't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. They feel like neither. Some kids feel like their gender identity isn't always the same. It's shifting back and forth. And even with all these possible ways to be, some kids don't feel like any words are right for them. There are a never-ending number of ways to be yourself in the world. Whenever you feel like a boy or a girl, both or neither, if just how you describe yourself is just another way of being yourself. Your gender identity might match what people thought you were when you were born, or it might not. See, when you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were because you were a little kid and you didn't know anything. And maybe they got it right, and maybe they got it wrong in the way you would come to feel and be in the world. So what a baby looks like when they're born can be a clue as to what the gender identity will be. Most often it is, but not always. When people guess wrong, it's okay to let them know. Ruthie was 5 when she told her parents, and she says, "I know you think I'm a boy, but really I feel like a girl." So Ruthie was a girl all along, and they just didn't know it. When people guess right, it's okay to let them know too. Xavier was 3.5 when he told his family, "I'm a boy and I like being a boy." I never thought of myself as not being a boy, but hey, that's me. You might feel like a boy, you might feel like a girl, you might feel like both boy and girl, or like neither. You might feel like your gender changes from day to day, or from year to year. You might feel that some of these words describe you perfectly. You might not be sure yet. Maybe you're still figuring it all out. Your feelings about your gender are real. Listen to your heart. No matter what your gender identity is, it's okay to be exactly the way you are, and you're loved. It feels good to be yourself. That's the most important message here. And then there's some number of words we have up here. We have sex assigned at birth. That's what people thought you were. The doctors assigned you. There's intersex, and there's people whose body parts aren't either one or the other, right? And then there's gender identity, and that's how you think about yourself and feel about yourself. And then there's the way you express yourself, right? There's your gender expression. These are all subtleties. We used to have them all in much more tight boxes, right? Much more just, it's an opening up to the complexity of the way the world is. It's really what's going on. Then there's transgender, and it's when someone switches their birth, it's assigned. And then there's non-binary, which we talked about. So there we are. How about some pronoun talk? You guys are the experts on this.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's lay it out.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Where's my mic? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Take it away.
Okay. So, pronouns, if you don't know what pronouns are, then it's basic English. It's when you do, it's how you refer to someone based off of their gender identity. So, like, if you're a guy,
You're
hello?
good. You're good.
If you're a guy, then you would go by he, him pronouns or he, they pronouns. It really depends what you want, honestly. Gender identity and pronouns don't always go together, but most of the time it does. And then sometimes when people don't fit into the gender spectrum, they'll use they, them pronouns, and that's A-okay, you know?
Or he, they, or she, they, or something.
Yeah, you do you, I guess.
All right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. That's pronouns.
Yeah. So we as a church are designed to be as open as we can, and I think people who are, it's a transition, we all need to be forgiving of people when they don't exactly get it right. So, thank you. Let's sing out our kids with our Singing Out Our Kids song. This is my song. Oh, now let us sing.
Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Lift up your voice.
Lift up your voice.
Be not afraid. Now let us sing to the power of the faith within.
Can we do that one more time? Let's do that one more time.
Let us sing
To the power of the faith within. Into the power of the faith within.
Lift up your voice.
Lift up your voice. Be not afraid.
Let us
Sing to the power of the faith within. Thank you. I'm going to read you a boring thing about the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. The Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom is a statement about both freedom of conscience and the principle of separation of church and state. It was written by Thomas Jefferson and passed by the Virginia General Assembly in 1786, a decade after the Declaration of Independence. So we hadn't squared away the separation of church and state. It's the forerunner to the First Amendment protections for religious freedom. It's divided into 3 paragraphs. The statute is rooted in Jefferson's philosophy. It could be passed in Virginia because there were dissenting sects there at that time. There were Baptists and Presbyterians and Methodists. There was more diversity there than there was in New England, so they were able to have a little bit more energy to have freedom. The Puritans decided that freedom was for them and no one else. Jefferson had argued that in the Declaration of Independence that the laws of nature and of the God of those laws, nature's God as he referred to it, the first paragraph of religious statute proclaims that one of the entitlements is to the freedom of thought. To Jefferson, who was more or less a deist, deists believed that there was a God that started the universe but didn't tinker very much. That's the briefest explanation I can give you. Gives humans the freedom to choose their religious beliefs. The deists of the time accepted the idea of a God who created the world and is the final judge of humans, or man, but who does not interfere in the affairs of man. This God who gives humans, the freedom to believe or not, is also the God of the Christian sects. The second paragraph in the Act states that no person can be compelled to attend a church or support it with their taxes. It says that an individual is free to worship as he pleases, with no discrimination. And the third paragraph reflects Jefferson's belief in people's right, through their elected assemblies, to change any laws. Here Jefferson states that The statute is not irrevocable because no law is irrevocable, not even the Constitution. Future assemblies that choose to repeal or circumscribe the act do so at their own peril, he warned, because it is an infringement of a natural right to have that choice. Thus, Jefferson articulates that religious freedom is both a natural right and the sovereignty of the people, but technically not irrevocable by a democratic body. Confusing hair splitting, right? There we are. Okay, here's your sermon. Here we are on Independence Day, headed into what in only a UU church could predictably be a sermon that earnestly champions America's decision to separate church and state. We need a little bit more of that talk around, I think. However, in choosing to restart a conversation that was started at our Seekers group months ago, what I felt compelled to say is not a gushy advertisement for the concept, although I do believe in it. I'm going to take it a little bit different way just to stir the pot. Because I think it'll stir the pot, and because what I hope will be a hearty discussion, and because it's sort of initially how I approached the conversation for myself, I don't think I approach the church-state conversation with the clarity that most of us do. Most of us see the church-state thing as a defense against religious oppression, right? That's sort of where we stand. See, in my moral reptilian brain, before I'll come around to accept and champion all the reasons that I'm glad we've established the barriers between faith and politics that we have, which I do, before I feel the need to defend the boundaries we famously enacted between clerical stuff and state stuff, a brilliant thing, I need to say that it depresses me to be reminded that we need to have these laws. At my most primitive, I don't initially care about what systems get us to the right positions and concerns. And just to push the envelope, I might say that I might even feel that way about democracy too. Democracy's fine, perhaps the best of all the present systems of governments around, but as we've seen it seesaw in leadership, I'm not sure it's a magical elixir for the right answers as to how to govern us. I would just as happily be ruled by a caste of enlightened philosophers, a smart and balanced group of men and women who had on their benevolent and intelligent hearts an agenda that deftly uplifted the oppressed while we preserve the planet. That's what concerns me. I would almost suggest any government or plan that had chief on its agenda the idea of lifting up women's rights, intentionally and compassionately managing population growth like we never have before, and was willing to defend the right of everyone to love who they love, I would probably support that. So if Gandhi and Mother Teresa and Naomi Klein and the recently deceased Bishop Tutu, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Bill McKibben were consulting with the present Pope and the Dalai Lama to peacefully take over the world from the present cast of leaders, I would support them. As long as they were leading us towards a sustainable, gun-free, egalitarian state, I'm in. I have enough of a concern for the efficiency of government and enough of a concern of the urgency of the state of the planet and enough a sense of clarity about how things should work that I just want the right people with the right priorities to make the right decisions. I frankly, while I'm on a roll, really don't care what they intended when they wrote the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, or the Second Amendment for that matter. I don't think corporations are people or having guns should even be legal. My reptilian moral brain is interested in political ends at this moment, not means. The church-state debate depresses me because there really is no clean way to sort out whether your feelings on a topic are religious or secular. See, at the deepest level, I have notes that I should say this in a pompous masters in ethics way. I know that morality, what we really care about, does not play well between the lines because it's not created between those lines. Norms and morality are not created within the lines, and people's hearts and minds are not divided that way. Our values are our values. There's no division in us personally or really even in a culture, whether it's a deeply held religious view or a political one that you hold. Religion is politics, politics is religion. and anything else, which we try to do in this country, like no other before it, is a little bit of a Pollyanna distinction. Maybe this is childish. Maybe like a petulant teen, I try to struggle with these intellectual boundaries, legalisms, or codes that try to establish between what the real moral state of affairs are. I understand this might be a violation of the way you feel, or an anathema that your pastor says that. I feel if it's meaningful for a majority of people to put up an icon, then put it up. If it's meaningful for a group of people to fight to get it removed, then fight to get it removed. I might even suggest we join them on either side. But the separation of church and state as a tool in that fight kind of bores me. My concern for me and us being anti-racist, and for me as a religious concern, I think is just that my fear as a species is that we're just a little too enamored with the idea of living on another planet. Is that a religious concern, or is that a secular one? I don't know. Am I imposing my values if I hold that as a deeply religious concern? If someone believes that their belief that souls are inserted to fetuses at the time of conception, and they believe that that outweighs the rights of a woman to control what is only beginning to grow in their own body, although I vehemently disagree, I would rather not scream that it is an invalid opinion because it is a religious one. Okay, maybe I might, but I don't like that. I know that the values of culture eventually choose to be guided by are always going to be a compromise. The church and state debate to me seems to almost promise that there'll be some clean option for morality that is either religious or secular, or we go between them. Just like what language makes a record or a movie explicit is always shifting, and or how short a skirt should be before a teen gets sent home from school, and or what schools should get public funding, and or whether there should be a nativity scene set up on the town center green, or whether the missions that run up and down our coast here in California should be revered as artifacts of history, museums of progress, or banned as the first outposts of a violent, successful, oppressing group. Just like every civilization and generation before us, there's always been some version of culture war that will blur religious and secular concerns. Who gets to determine whether it's even legal for girls to get to go to school, ride a bike, or whether in a Bible-loving nation you get stoned to death for drinking milk while you're wearing wool? We are, regardless of any church-state division, always going to be in a fight about whose norms win the day. In fact, the very distinction is obviously a contrived box we've placed over a culture war. It always will be. Ask yourself, seriously, ask yourself, whether the most basic rule that governs that we not kill each other, about the first rule you can come up with, is a religious one or a secular one. There is that subtle presumption in the church-state debate that we can separate those two, and we can't. What I find the separation of church debate a bit of a distraction is because we've always done it. We always pick some values over another. We muddle back and forth about how much of America's Judeo-Christian heritage we want to lock in and breathe into our laws, or just let sit on the outside and inform us. How much are we going to incorporate indigenous rights and laws as we move forward? See, to me, there is no reason to fund Planned Parenthood and not a ghost gun building workshop as an after-teen program, then that's the values we either have or don't have. It took about 150 years from the time we inked into existence the Bill of Rights and Constitution that we decided that women should have the right to vote. Was that inequality religious or cultural? Did the church-state debate offer any help in deciding whether we should confine Asian Americans during World War II? or perform medical experiments on black men and the mentally ill? Was the church-state debate helpful in whether we should turn fire hoses onto peaceful protesters? No. We have for more than 200 years basically held the clear rules that anyone who was born in America could be elected president. And we as voters have elected only one gender every single time. Was it religious that only one person who was not a Protestant and only one person who was not completely white has served in that role? The sheer fact that none of you will spit on me or shoot at me if you don't like this sermon is rooted in a deeply set morality that any one of us could hardly determine is secular or religious. Morality is shaped in us and shared between us in a magical way that we call culture. It makes the distinction between church and state like window dressing. We have values, but those values are not in practice sourced from separate boxes. Separating or trying to separate our nation's religious from its secular values has almost nothing to do with what happens or ever has or ever will. Whether we as Americans will be willing to look at the implications of our commitment to freedom and liberty on an economy that almost exclusively benefits the wealthy and faster than any culture on earth ever has created a lifestyle that is destroying the life systems of earth has nothing to do with the church-state division. Having some formal barriers that separate church and state or doesn't mean we're better people. Long after we put the effort to put up formal barriers between church and state, we continue to debate about whether slavery was moral or not. I'll get to my praise for the genius of the division of church and state in our roundabout talk. Discussions about how and where to divide our religious from our political values will not lead us to a place where we've decided to build a universal healthcare system, or we don't. And if we do, whether people potentially getting care will freely be allowed to smoke, do heroin, eat Twinkies, and receive free of charge the expensive medical procedures that are correlated with those choices. Will the church-state division help us with that? No. Life is clumsy, and our values compete over, under, and through any imaginary walls we create. There is no separation, really, in practice between the town hall and the parish hall. What was Jesus and Muhammad's position on whether affirmative action was good or had gone too far? Anyone? What was Jesus or Muhammad's position on whether we value the coastal habitat of the whooping crane or we should put up windmills? What was Jesus or Buddha's position on those issues again? I think we know the answer. I think our politics would be cleaner and more honest and more efficient if we just decided to some broad, straight-out compromises where both sides fail to get everything and wait between them for long stretches to see how that temporary decision falls out. To me, that makes much more sense than having a nation's laws spin under which political party has Supreme Court justices die or retire in. Of course, everyone's Christian and our secular values, even their oppressive ones, are going to inform their politics. Of course they are. So why don't we just let it? When the Pilgrims arrived, fresh from the constraints of England's repressive church-dominated politics, fresh from the up and down turmoils of Europe's religious bloodbath of wars, they established their own colony and in the next breath made their religion mandatory. Hello, America. Everyone is now free to practice our religion. Back in the first 100 years after Plymouth Rock colonists who were in the minority, people who were atheists, Baptists, Catholics, or Jews were punished, expelled, or executed right here in this country. As our nation has begun to put down roots, displaced and murdered and enslaved natives, how much church and state debate had to do with that? Okay. I've said enough. I think you get my point. I'm going to invite Leanne up to sort of person this, and I'm going to walk around with the microphone for anyone who wishes to have a say on this great Independence Day about this matter or abortion or anything that affects anything in that general field? Judy. Okay. I'll come to you too.
Thank you. First of all, that was a brilliant,
Flip it so we
a
see.
brilliant sermon.
Oh, thanks.
Um, I just wanted to give you an example of how the church has influenced the state of Georgia, which is where I'm from. When I started teaching in 1966, we know that most of the textbooks that are approved have to go first through some of the largest states, and one of the largest states, of course, is Texas. So the Texas people object to a lot of the things that get put into the textbooks, so the textbook companies wanting to get rid of these things if they don't like them. So when I got my first textbook in biology, there was a section on humans, and we had all the different systems, one chapter for the nervous system, one for the circulatory, and so on and so on. There was one system that was totally missing, and that was, of course, the reproductive system. There was no reproductive system because Texas had taken it out. And also, when I changed to another county, when I started teaching, I looked at the curriculum guide, and it said that I was supposed to cover organic change. And I said, well, I have a master's degree, and I have studied organic chemistry, but I don't know what this is. And I figured out finally that it was evolution. And the curriculum people at the state and the county were afraid to put the word evolution into our textbooks or into our curriculum guides. So, you know, I had to just buck the system from the first day. So that's how it gets mingled in there. You have to be careful.
Thanks, Judy.
Yeah, thanks for this topic, this sermon. So my dad, and a lot of you are older, you've been around, and maybe you'll understand something I'm gonna say, is my dad would have been about 95 right now, and he always remembered the 1950s, McCarthyism, early anti-communism, and he always told me, he said, Rachel, just always remember, the word was not communism that they were against. The word was godless communism. He said it was one word, and they drilled it in, and they terrified people, and they began, I feel, at that point, to just ruin this culture. We have a huge tradition in America also of like non-religion, all the transcendentalists, you know, the UUs, God, I can't remember, Ingersoll, Robert Ingersoll. Raise your hand if you know.
Yeah.
We all should know Robert Ingersoll. Please look him up. The great agnostic, a leader of the Enlightenment movement in the 1800s. So all that came through the Cold War in my mind. This is my thing. In God we trust, one nation under God, all that bullshit came down, and as you're right, it's not a religious thing or whatever, it's a right-wing thing. And because I have been going for over 20 years to the most spiritual, beautiful, religious place I feel on earth, Cuba. And we've been trained to hate anything that has that C word or the S word. And it's a right-wing mind F. And my dad went down once, lifelong atheist, because he was raised in Catholicism. And I'll never forget, we're sitting on the seawall, the Malecón, and my dad, who even thinks incense is too spiritual, said, I've had spiritual experiences. I could have fallen off the wall in a country like Cuba that truly has separation of church and state. You're either creyente or a no creyente, a believer, a non-believer. I've never felt so free. My dad felt free to just admit his spirituality because he wasn't oppressed by religion like in this country. So it's a right-wing thing.
Thanks, Rach. I think so.
quickly. I grew up in godless communism. It wasn't that bad. But more to the point, I think it's very important to get history right, and I appreciated that sermon. There's just one major fallacy in there, and that's important to know. The Pilgrims did not flee from religious persecution. That just isn't true. It's a perpetuated myth. They came here from the religiously very free society of Holland. And they came here to exactly do what they did later on, which is tell everybody that you now get to do our religion, because the young people were running away. They were losing their flocks. They were disintegrating. So they decided to go to the New World where they could go and assert their power and their opinions. And I think it's really important to know that that's the mindset that we're living in until today. Thank you.
I think another thing that's prevalent today is that in the far-right religious people, or the evangelicals,
Yep.
is the sense of prosperity gospel, that if God wanted you to be rich, you would be rich. And if you're poor, that's what God wants you to be. And so a lot of the things that get decided about money and property in our culture today have to do with that prosperity gospel.
Thank you.
So listening to the news on the way here, there was a new poll that came out done by different people from both political parties, and the outcome is 19% of liberal Democrats and 36% of conservative Republicans believe I have to pick up arms against the government now. 1/5 of liberals have to get guns to protect ourselves against the government. We're going up against the Green Berets, everybody. Get ready! You know, I love this country so much I have to shoot it. Doesn't really make sense to me. May it never come to that.
mayor? Some foreign diplomat? No, the cop said. Bigger deal than even that. I don't know who's in the back, but he's got the Pope for a driver. Give as generously as the Pope driver did. Closing hymn, and Greg's going to come up and join me, not now, just, yeah. 159, This Is My Song. I was just buying Abraham some time and Kelly to get this squared away. There we are. All right.
This is my song.
so true, isn't it?
What a pure voice that clarinet has, right? I love a clarinet. It's just such a pure tone. And this church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all of our differences, beneath all of our diversity, there's a unity that makes us one and binds us together forever, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. And we pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom, salam, namaste, and blessed be. And now,
Our service truly begins.
Or should.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, yes, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Speak with me, speak with me, speak with me, oh my soul. Speak with me, yeah. Speak with me, speak with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Please dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Thank you.